Well, well, well. We are back once again, dunking on Benny Boy Shapiro. I did a recent video in which I agreed with him and said, wait, he's actually based here, about the Lord of the Rings Rings of Power show, because believe it or not, he has not jumped on the hate bandwagon of the show and called it woke or whatever. At least from what I've seen, he's actually been very charitable to it. And even when I watched his review of episode 4, even brought up very, very compelling evidence that Halbrand is Sauron. And now I can't stop thinking it. And now every scene that I see Halbrand in, I keep on interpreting things as being better evidence that he's Sauron. So Ben Shapiro actually got me on that one. And I even posted a video, a whole segment, where I said, it was titled, I Can't Believe I Agree with Ben Shapiro on this. But unfortunately, our boy, it looks like, is probably going to end up going back on his basedness, as he's talking about a drama that I'm surprised he would even talk about. Like, he is pretty shameless and whatnot, but it just feels so harmless to the extent that it feels like you're just kind of giving the game away by even expressing anger about it, you know? And that is Lizzo playing the... which fucking president was it? Madison? Whatever Madison. The crystal flute that's in, like, the Library of Congress or whatever. Lizzo played it. For those of you guys that don't know, Lizzo is a singer who's pretty famous and well-known. She's got like 2 million followers on Twitter. James Madison, thank you. I don't really know a shit ton about Lizzo or her music. All I know is that the first time I ever heard about Lizzo was random like chud gamer bro dudes talking about how it's bullshit that she's popular and she's only popular because she's a fat black woman that like woke liberals want to support or they'll seem racist. So that was how I learned about Lizzo and her existence initially. From like a very popular, like, not even right-wing channel, actually. It was actually a very, like, popular apolitical, like, centrist channel, but, yeah, even they, like, were not big fans of Lizzo. Like, it seems like in a lot of, kind of edgy spaces, there's this idea that Lizzo is sort of like Amy Schumer tier. And if you know anything about these people, comparing someone to Amy Schumer should make it very clear how bad, like, that's very bad. If these people think you're something like Amy Schumer, then you're very bad. And they think Amy Schumer is a woman with no talent who is using her gender to get ahead. Very much like the general, like, conservative narrative, right? And I'll admit, I don't think Amy Schumer's funny. She very clearly steals jokes. But I don't think it's some fucking political shit. I don't think it's like men versus women. Women can't be funny. Men are the only ones that can be funny. Here's evidence of it. But they'll try to push it that way. It's really bizarre. But, like, that's what they've tried to do with Lizzo. Now, besides that, I literally had no idea what she was famous for. Because, like, that's how I learned of her. Like, I just learned of her because of that. And I was like, oh, okay, it seems like these racists are mad about a famous black woman existing. And I was able to pick up on, like, why they hated this one pretty easily and pretty quick. I'm not stupid. I know why these people think the way they do. And so, once I figured that out, I just didn't really look into it much more until this drama came up. Lizzo had a video come out of her just beautifully playing this crystal... Is it a clarinet or a flute? I think it was a flute. Just the most immaculate flute solo I think I've ever seen. Like, it's actually, unironically, crazy good. Just so you guys know I'm not saying that, I'll go ahead and I'll bring up the video. Because Ben Shapiro is probably going to try to bring up the talentless person who's only famous for... If Ben Shapiro's statements are going to be anything... If previous statements from people that like Ben Shapiro or anything to go off of, Ben Shapiro is going to say that Lizzo is talentless and is only famous because she is an overweight black woman. That is what he's going to say in some way, shape, or form in this video. I guarantee it. Here, let me see if I can find the video of her playing the flute. So You tell me if this seems like disrespectful or if this was like them just bringing a celebrity in to like tarnish some famous artifact for no other reason than, oh, a celebrity is in the White House and woke points, and not like, oh, this person clearly knows how to fucking play the flute. Because this person knows how to play the flute. It's glass, not actual, like, crystals. Crystal glass. It was probably blown. So, considering her fingers were moving faster than my WoW rotation, it's pretty clear, and just based on what you heard, it's very clear that she's talented as fuck. Like, that was... Guys, can I tell you something? In elementary school, I attempted to learn two instruments in the music class, because we had like an option of learning one instrument by the end of the year to some competent level for our grade. And so at first, I chose violin because my uncle played the violin, and I felt like he could teach me. My uncle was not much help, and I sucked at violin, and my mom would scream at me for playing it in the house, because when I'd practice, you'd have to hear... I want you to imagine what it would sound like if there was a hell for cats. If cats died and went to hell to be tortured for all eternity for their sins, I want you to imagine what that would sound like. That is what it sounded like when I would practice my violin. So I can understand why she was a little upset, but very quickly I had to find a little bit less of a loud instrument, so I ended up resolving myself to flute, and I never got very good at it. I remember I got like... I was able to go do-do-do, do-do-do. I'm very bad at tone, hold on. Do-do-do, do-do-do. I think anyone who's done like flute probably learned that basic one. Isn't that like one of the first things you learn? Yeah, like we did that one, like hot cross buns. That basic thing is what they taught us, is like our basic like notes. Because we were literally like in elementary school, right? Like none of us knew how to read music. I don't know how to read music still, and I knew how to back then. I learned how to read music because they made me, like they made us for that class, and I totally forgot. I could not tell you like what an I couldn't tell you what a B sharp looks like, or if that's even a thing. That's probably not a thing. I probably made that up without realizing it. Anyway, yeah, I have absolutely no musical talent whatsoever, so I'll get that out of the way right away. However, Lizzo clearly does. Now, here's the thing. James Madison owned slaves. All right? The president, James Madison, he just straight up owned slaves. And not only that, but apparently he, like, raped them too. Which is... I guess I would have kind of assumed that, like, if it weren't otherwise stated. But I guess having, like, knowing that it's, like... a thing that is either suspected or known, I guess that adds an extra layer of, like, wildness to it for me, you know? Anyway. I don't want to over-distract you guys with, with lead up for this stuff. Lizzo, very clearly, very talented, right? The right, however, they can't concede that. Like, the right can't just let this fly. They can't let the left invite a prominent... Holy shit, am I good? I ran out of potions. They can't let somebody on the left, who is like a prominent political figure, invite such a prominent POC celebrity. They can't just concede the fact that Lizzo's a talented figure who was invited to the White House to, like... Yes, in part for a political statement about the fact that, yes, a very prominent black woman is now playing a fucking instrument that was that belonged to someone who was very influential in American history, but also we need to acknowledge had a very problematic history. I think that like having like a musically talented POC woman play the like artifact that belonged to the notoriously racist president, I think that's a really cool way to sort of like make a statement, you know? It'd be almost like if they tore down the literally, it's like how they tore down concentration camps and built museums and like memorials in their place after World War II and the Holocaust. Like turning a spot that was once a place of like, or something that represented or belonged to, or was a faculty, I guess you could say, of something evil or bad, is now sort of being used, or at least in some way, morphed into something good. I don't know. I think there's something. I think there's something there. Ben, please shave. It isn't working. Yeah, I feel like I need to point out right away. Our boy is rocking that stubble. Honestly, I think it looks okay. I think you should keep it for a little while. I want to see full bearded Shapiro. I feel like he'll look like he might actually just turn into Matt Walsh. He might actually just turn into Matt Walsh, though, to be fair.
So there was some video that came out from the Library of Congress of her playing the flute. She was trained at University of Houston to play the flute. So she knows how to play the flute.
Okay.
Doesn't mean she's like one of the world's great flautists, in the same way that I'm not one of the world's great violinists, right? Being trained from a young age to play, you can be pretty good, and that doesn't make you one of the world's, but she's a celebrity. Understood. Okay, so here's the video.
Ben's being reasonable so far.
Playing at the Library of Congress. This is better than what she usually does by like a long stretch.
What?
It's very nice.
I don't know. I've never heard her play this before. Apparently, this is better than she usually does.
This is very nice. I'm enjoying this. She's a pretty good flautist. Like, great. Okay, so that's non-controversial. Okay, then there's the clip that everybody's making a big deal out of, as the New York Times suggests, right? The big thing that happened with Lizzo is that she brought this flute to a concert, James Madison's flute to a concert, and she proceeded to twerk with it. So this is the thing that the entire world saw, was Lizzo.
What's the problem, though? What is the actual problem? Did it break? Chat, did the flute break or something? Like, if the flute is fine, what's the problem with that? No, legitimately. Tell me, what's wrong with twerking with a flute at a concert? There is nothing wrong with it. The reality is there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. In reality, we are talking about one of the most famous POC women musicians in America who has had the opportunity of being invited by, I'm assuming, being invited by the White House in order to play what is basically an American ancient artifact, and then also got to use it for a concert, or play it at said concert. There's nothing wrong with this. What's actually wrong with it, in these people's minds, is that twerking is a degenerate black people dance that evokes some sort of sexual urge in men. Okay, so there's a lot of really racist ideas that intersect here that I have to point out in order for us to, like, perfectly acknowledge this. So first, we have to talk about the way that racists view black women, okay? So black women, to these people, they like to say things like, God, I'm scared to even paraphrase or even quote because I worry about getting taken out of context. You have to be careful as a content creator. No matter what you're doing, people are always trying to get you for dishonest reasons. They will say things that are, let's just say, very overtly bigoted, right? And that's obviously racist, right? That's one thing, right? But then you've got this sort of like more vibey kind of racism, you know what I'm saying? Where right now it feels as though a lot of racists want to push this idea that there's this inherence to black women that makes them more sexual, and that twerking is a representation of that. It is twisting and like corrupting society and like yada yada yada. So what Ben Shapiro sees this as is as like a mockery, basically. Ben Shapiro sees twerking as almost like a black woman like doing a victory dance over the failure of racism. That's how he and his fans see it. And that hurts them very, very badly on an emotional level. That, like, she would be able to Fortnite dance on him like that. In all seriousness, like, most dudes who are super duper racist about black people, specifically black women, like in this case, typically have some like weird like sex shit going on, and it's extremely fucking common. It's usually born out of weird like sexual frustration and like weird like usually has something to do with like sexualization and dehumanization and objectification. All of these things become easier to do to women if you are a racist and you are doing it to POC women. I just feel like there's a lot of crossover in these things. It's why it's why I believe in intersectionality, is because there's so much crossover in all of this. You can't fight fat phobia without fighting racism. You can't fight racism without fighting fat phobia in this instance. You can't fight misogyny without fighting racism in this instance. You can't fight racism without fighting misogyny in this instance. Like, this is literally like so many things crossing over here that people are like attacking her for, and that this is like, that's pushing this narrative. And it can be very hard to hone it down to one thing. There's so many different like angles to go at it from. And one of them is just simply the fact that these people like to push the idea that like twerking is this degenerate like black people dance that's corrupting our culture because these bodacious black women are trying to corrupt men into destroying the white race by not having white babies anymore or something. I don't know. I'm literally trying to like piece together every bit of propaganda about this shit I've heard over the years to be as like broad. I'm trying to refer as broadly to what these people believe as possible, because if I'm too specific, then people can just be like, oh wait, I don't believe that. I don't believe that or that. So I'm being as broad as I can, and I'm referencing examples of literal Nazi and racist rants I've heard. BBC is literally their favorite porn category. Wait, what evidence, like, what solid evidence was ever, like, brought out to prove that definitively? What am I doing? Why did I start fighting this thing at half health? Was there any, like, solid evidence ever brought out to prove that, or was it just, like, memes? Like, was it memes, or was there actual, like, breakdowns of, like, the racist South being, like, really into BBC porn or something? I love that meme when it's a gif of Ben Shapiro with his beard rambling in high speed, and it's just titling explaining to my mom how I didn't eat the entire chocolate cake in the middle of the night. Jesus Christ.
Wearing essentially a skimpy outfit, twerking with James Madison's flute. Not the first one, which is a very respectful treatment of a historic instrument, but instead, Lizzo bringing forth a
So, already, Ben's lost me, okay? When you presuppose that I am supposed to think that twerking is a degenerate, disrespectful, horrible thing to do in the presence of a beautiful, pure white man's relic, I guess, like, if you can't convince me of that to begin with, then how am I supposed to agree with any of your statements that follow that? My man's building his entire premise on a foundation of quicksand.
Historic instrument to twerk with it, which of course is the point. And this is here is the clip of Lizzo.
You can do it! It's crystal. It's like playing out of a wine glass. We love you!
Okay, and then she said something about how she twerked and played James Madison's crystal flute from the 1800s. We just made history
Wait.
tonight. We'll get to more on this in just one moment.
Wait, is there no video of her twerking? Wait, he didn't show a video of her twerking. That was just her playing it. Does he show the video after this ad? Gotta make his money. Hey, chat, if you want to make the right mad, donate to me, okay? When lefties make money, it makes conservatives mad. Why do you think these people fucking shill to constantly make as much money as possible? They literally rely on being rich, okay? If they weren't so fucking rich, donate to me instead. All right, with that said, though, here, we'll resume in just a second. Hold on. Every time one of these guys in the venture company barge, and the clock there, I think they call it, stuff makes for a great solvent. Okay, so it's apparently in a canister I need to find. All right. Let's find that shit.
Person played very nicely. It was when she played one note and twerked with James Madison's flute. Okay, so this is what I'm going to call
Wait, she twerked?
the face tattoo syndrome. Okay, because what has happened in the media is the face tattoo syndrome.
But there was no... I didn't see any twerking happen. I swear. Am I blind? Did I miss it? Let's fucking enhance.
Which,
enhance
of course, is the point. Okay, this is here is the clip of Lizzo.
Enhance.
You can do it! It's crystal. It's like playing out of a wine glass. So be patient. We love you!
I do think she could probably play the Shire theme. If I walked up to Lizzo and I handed her a flute and I was like, "Do you know the Shire theme?" I bet she'd be like, "Yeah, I know it. Everybody who plays the flute knows how to do the Shire theme." And she'd be like, "Oh, you guys can't hear me whistle with this shit on." No. No, I can't take my filters off. I'm sorry. I so badly wish you could have heard me whistle there. I'm so sorry you guys can't hear it. I can't take the filters off, though. It takes way too long. All right, back to it. Does she actually twerk, though? I didn't see her twerk. I'll pay attention to her. Oh, let's pay attention to her. She's kind of small on stage here because it's so far away, so it's kind of hard to tell. But let's see if she actually twerks.
Okay, and then she said something about how she...
Wait, that was literally just a bow. Did she twerk earlier? All right, let's watch her the whole time.
Which, of course, is...
This is the only twerking video with the flute that I've found.
They won't let me do it. Sorry, James Madison and his wife, Miss Madison.
This is the only one of her twerking you could find.
All right, I'm gonna just get it.
Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, wait, why didn't you just show this? Wait, this is literally a clip of her in that same hall where she does actually twerk a little bit. But it was literally like a meme. Also, to be very clear, she could have been wearing like those 80s style tear-off pants. And like a tear-off shirt, and could have been wearing like a thong underneath all of this and started twerking with the flute for all I care. I would not be angry about it. How the fuck are you mad about this? Okay, I want to be very clear, by the way. These are men obsessing with the sanctity of a gay little glass phallic flute that belonged to a slave owner that lived like over 100 years ago. Let's be real. These people aren't being honest about what they actually take issue with here. Well, there we go. We finally saw her twerk, and it wasn't even shown by Ben. It wasn't even featured by our boy Ben. Shameless. Shameless.
Is the point. Yeah, this is here is the clip of Lizzo.
So this is apparently where she twerks but doesn't? You should have showed the other clip where she actually does.
A wine glass. So be patient. We love you!
Okay, right here, I guess she shakes her butt a little bit. Okay, there we go. God, can you imagine seeing that and thinking, yeah, this right here, that's what I need to be worrying about right now. That's the biggest thing I'd be worrying about right now. Can you imagine how good your life has to be? How sheltered, privileged, and, like, innocent you must be to, like, feel like this is the worst thing that you could imagine in your life? Like, this is what you're talking about right now. This is what you're reeing about and getting upset over. I don't know. It just, it speaks to their privilege, you know? It does. Like, the left, the left will, like, bring up studies, academics, stats and data to back up their claims about things such as, systemic racism and what have you existing. And in response, they're just like, ha! Dumb fuck, lefty. Did you not realize? You fool. I'm not racist. I'm simply asking questions.
Okay, and then she said something about how she twerked and played James Madison's
What
Crystal
is
Flute
the
from 1800s.
problem?
We just made history tonight.
I don't get how it's an issue. You can only care about this if twerking offends you because you think it's like the degenerate black people dance or something, and that's how you see it. Like, there's no... I can see a very prude, like, perspective, like, that belonged to a very loved historical man in history, and you can't put such disrespect on it. It's like, okay, what if she'd flipped someone off while holding it? What if she'd, like, changed her clothes with it in the same room? Like, I don't know. It just feels, like, so cringe to say that this item is, like, some... Like, we're not talking about the fucking light... The goddamn Ashbringer. They're talking about it like it's the Ashbringer from World of Warcraft. And that Lizzo twerking with it has turned it into the corrupted Ashbringer. That's how they're talking about it. Am I the only one that sees that? How does her twerking in the presence of this flute in any way disrespect or, like, desanctify it in whatever weird American exceptionalist fucking deifying of the founding fathers and all of our presidents that weren't, like, recent Democrats that these people like to do? You're such a fucking nerd. Yeah.
We'll get to more on this in just one moment. First, the government is addicted to spending. The price on everything is going up, but there is no reason you should be paying too much for your cell phone service. Here's the thing.
We're back at the beginning of the ad. Take me back. All right.
Tattoo? You're like, well, I mean, you did get a face tattoo to draw attention to yourself, so if you're asking my opinion of the face tattoo, I think it was a bad idea and it looks terrible.
Okay. So Ben Shapiro is now comparing twerking, which is a dance move that a professional musician did on stage at a concert, to somebody getting a face tattoo. So, I want to be clear here, it is no accident that Ben Shapiro is very obviously trying to draw a connection between the quote-unquote trashiness of a face tattoo, and I will admit I do think a face tattoo is trashy, and what he believes is trashiness of twerking. And I'm going to be clear, by the way, twerking is just, like, a hot dance. Like, there's literally nothing about it that is different in any way to, like, I don't know, like a belly dance or something. Like any other dance that a girl would do to be sexy and give you a boner, you know? Like, I don't see how it really makes any difference. The big issue is that to these people, they see twerking as being, like, this uniquely, like, POC thing. So they don't like it. Yeah.
How dare you notice? You cannot notice. If you notice, it's bad. The face tattoo phenomenon. That's what's happening here with Lizzo. The first clip, totally uncontroversial. The one that actually made the rounds, however, was her twerking, because it is the contrast. That's the whole point that they are making. And commentators were saying this. It is the contrast between Lizzo, a significantly overweight African-American musician, right? Because the idea is that it's groundbreaking for an African-American musician to play James Madison, one of the founders of the Constitution, to play his...
Well, the idea is that he was one of the founders of the Constitution who owned slaves and raped his slaves. And that item is literally, like, held as like an American relic. So there is absolutely a bit of symbolism. Yeah. A little bit. Is it some like lib shit? Sure. I don't care. Everyone seemed happy to see her play the flute. She seemed happy to play the flute. She had permission. Who gives a shit?
Is flute. That's the groundbreaking aspect. But really, it isn't even her race, right? They tried to make it about her race. It isn't really her race, because I'm sure that if they had wanted to find a better...
So, remember earlier, I was covering the Dave Cullen video, and I brought up how these people will basically do that thing where like a child tries to hold out their hands in a futile attempt to cover up something that they're trying to hide from their parents that they did wrong. Like, conservatives will do that with like blatant examples of the actors or like people in question getting hate threats or death threats because of their identity or because of like the propaganda these people shill. And then when that happens and when it's acknowledged, they're like, huh, so everyone who disagrees with you is a racist now, huh? You called it? Listen, I know how these people think. As I said, I can run an emulation of their brains in my brain, okay? It is not hard. It's not hard to outsmart them. These aren't intelligent people. Well, actually, no. I misuse intelligence. They're intelligent, but they're not honest people. And dishonesty is really good propaganda, but if you're well practiced at debunking dishonesty enough, it starts to get easy. And at this point, like, when I'm predicting what these people are going to say before they say it without watching the video, I mean, like, almost word for word, even, then I think that goes to show that maybe I've been running emulations of these people's minds inside of my own for way too long.
Better flautist who is black than Lizzo. I'm sure that there are many black flautists who are significantly better than Lizzo, right? They play in orchestras around the world. I'm sure they are wonderful. Okay, so if the idea was just going to be, we are going to take a historic instrument that belonged to a white Southerner who was in charge of founding the...
What else, Ben? What else, Ben? White Southerner? Come on, come on. White Southerner in charge of founding America? He's not going to bring up the slaves thing, is he? He's not going to mention that he was a slave owner. He's not going to do it. And if he does, he's going to say, and actually, he was known to have treated his slaves quite well.
The Constitution, and we are going to have a very talented African-American black person play that. That would have been really uncontroversial. Like, seriously. It'd be the equivalent of if let's say that George Washington had had a harpsichord, and we had Condoleezza Rice go and play the harpsichord. Like, everyone, okay, all right, fine. Okay, but it is the twerking that does it. Understand it's the twerk. It is about the twerking. The story is solely and completely about the twerking, which is why you didn't see the first video. The first video has a few views. The one of her playing very nicely in the Library of Congress while dressed somewhat decently. It is the second video where she is twerking and wearing skimpy outfits with the flute that is because the...
So this makes her a bad person, I guess. So she twerked with the flute, and so that makes her a bad person somehow, right? Because why else are people calling this out unless they think this is some sort of demonstration of, like, lack of moral character from Lizzo? Clearly they think she's done something morally reprehensible here. So this makes her a bad person? She's done something wrong here? Something worth calling out? No. The through line in everything they complain about is very clear. It's always whenever there are minorities doing things, and it gets attention, and the attention is too positive for them to be okay with.
The idea is to degrade the culture. That is what people, that is why the clip is viral. The reason the clip is viral is the contrast between a person twerking and the idea of an extraordinarily classy instrument, a historic instrument that speaks to sort of the gentility of America's founders.
This is the most virgin thing I've ever heard.
It's the vulgarization of...
Okay. Considering the fact that just listening to this makes it feel like all the cum I've ever busted onto any girl is like being rewound back inside of my balls, and thus my virginity is coming back to me just by hearing Ben talk like this, Holy shit, who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? If you were like a fan of Ben Shapiro and you watch this, or like you're seeing this and you think, yeah, Ben Shapiro is really laying down the facts here, can you please, like, maybe get a shower and put in a little effort into getting a girlfriend, please? Or like a boyfriend, or a femboy, or an NB friend or something? Like, seriously, you need to get... You need to let off some steam, okay? Like... This is what happens when virginity is left to fester, okay? Virginity is like cheese, okay? It's good for a few hours. Wait, hold on, wait, what? No, virginity is like wine. It's good for like 25 to 30 years, but then after that it starts to go bad, right? Wine goes bad after like 30 to 40 years, right? Most wine does, right? If it's not high enough alcohol content? I don't know enough about wine. Okay, let's assume wine does go bad. Just assume it's a good fucking analogy, okay? My point is that much like food sitting on a counter for too long, virginity will mold, alright? And it turns you into this. Please get laid. Take a shower. Brush your hair. Brush your teeth. Get some new clothes. Or just... I don't know, borrow some, or steal some, or something. I don't know. I swear to God, when the pussy starts coming, this stuff's gonna start going. I swear it will, alright? That is my... I give you my word, Ben Shapiro fans. If I'm wrong about this, you have... Well, honestly, I was gonna say you have all permission to call me out, but frankly, I have a feeling I'm gonna get called out regardless for this video, so, yeah.
American history. Again, Lizzo did both, and only one of those clips went viral. And so if you notice that, then you're very, very bad. If you notice that, then this means that you're some sort of racist, or it means that you don't want black people playing the flute or something. No, I just don't want people twerking with historic instruments. By the way, I'd be similarly offended, as a violinist, if there is a Stradivarius.
All right, to be clear, I don't actually think Ben is mad about this because it was a black person playing the flute. I think what makes him mad is that this was, in many ways, a demonstration of, like, a anti-racist political value being expressed by the United States government itself by, like, having her there to do that. Like, there's very overt, like, tone in why that was done, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't want America to have, like, even a veneer of an anti-racist government, you know? Because if you start to normalize So racism and anti-racism have one thing in common. The more either of them is normalized, the more prevalent they get. The more that anti-racism is normalized, the less that people think it's cringe SJW freakout shit. And the more that racism is normalized, the less people think it's racism, and the more people think it's just memes and jokes and yada yada. Who cares what people say? Free speech, yada yada. You ever notice that?
Somebody had a Strad. Okay, and that Strad was lent out to a musician who then proceeded to twerk on the Strad. I would also be insulted because it turns out that great art should not be degraded.
Who cares?
Great art, American history, they should not be degraded by juxtaposition
Degraded?
with vulgarity.
What?
That should not be a controversial...
Wait, he's actually arguing that this is a morally bad thing that having... Oh, God, there's so much to take apart here. The concept of art and vulgarity not getting along, like the idea of what is vulgarity, the idea that like where like vulgarity and art begins, like the fact that they can't coexist, the fact they can't mesh, like oh my fucking God. Especially since I just watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners earlier today, binge watched all 10 episodes with my friends, and I will say that was certainly a mix of art and vulgarity, okay? Most certainly. You can do it. It exists. Art and vulgarity can simultaneously coexist. This is very clearly a demonstration of... You know what's crazy? I just keep on fucking calling it. Earlier in my Dave Cullen reaction, I talked about how these people are against postmodernist art. How they believe that, like, modern art is degenerative to society. Sounds like we're hearing that all again. I swear, I do not pre-watch these videos. I don't pre-watch them. I swear, I legitimately do not pre-watch these videos. I'm very, very good at seeing what these people are going to argue. They are not very smart. They really, really aren't. They get very predictable.
Position, but we've now reached the point in American life where nearly everything is a controversial position. Literally
I swear
everything.
I rewatch.
Every day on this show, there's some clip that is taken that is utterly uncontroversial and then made into a thing on Twitter. Because we now live in a world where we do not have a shared reality. This was a point.
You know what? I've never heard it put better than by Ben himself. We do live in a shared reality. We live in the reality where we've got somebody like Ben Shapiro who can say he cares about facts and logic and data and studies, but then when somebody goes on stage and asks Ben, hey, how do you reconcile your transphobia with the fact that the overwhelming amount of scientific studies and the academic consensus is that trans people are valid, sex and gender aren't the same thing, and everything that you say is true of being trans and of just the entire concept of gender and sexuality is completely false, he responds by saying, I don't agree with any of the consensus with these academic institutions. He just shoulder waves it. He admits that these institutions, all the scientists, sociologists, all the overwhelming evidence disagrees with what he stands for, and he doesn't care. The facts don't care about your feelings. Facts and logic, whatever the fuck, like facts and logic, data, whatever. It's all a front. The people who feel the need to constantly talk about how much they're fucking logic, bro, epic facts, logic lords, like Ben Shapiro has been known to, so much so that he's been memed into being known for that. I think it becomes pretty clear. I think it becomes pretty clear that, like, homeboy just likes to hear himself talk and seem smart.
That was made by an account on Twitter called Wocal Distance. And he was saying that we don't have a shared reality because half the people saw this clip and they were offended by it, and half the people are like, woohoo, it's amazing. Okay, that shared reality has gone away on literally everything. And you have to understand that without that shared reality, we can't have political conversations. We can't have shared values. It's very difficult to see how you have a future as a country if you don't have some sort of shared value. The part that's kind of astonishing to me on a personal level is I don't understand why Lizzo would do that. Right? Lizzo is enough of a musician to understand the nature of historic musical pieces of art.
Right.
And so the degradation of that, like, why doesn't she personally have the respect for the instrument and a respect for the history?
I'm sorry, but are we just going to listen to Ben complain and be a virgin for the next... Okay. All right, Ben. Let your virginity, express your virginity to me. Okay, let the world see it.
Enough not to twerk with it. I mean,
Does
and
Ben
by the way,
have
the left would
kids?
have the same exact reaction if somebody took
If Ben has no kids, there's absolutely zero evidence Ben has ever had sex in his entire life.
the Mona Lisa off the wall at the Louvre and then went and twerked with it at some sort of rock event. They'd have exactly the same reaction because degradation of the past, degradation of great art is part and parcel of something that the deconstructionist left loves. They love the idea that...
Actually, wait, hold on. There's an explanation as to how he could have kids, but never have had sex. And he is religious, so maybe he believes in Immaculate Conception.
That great art doesn't exist, that all art is equivalent, that Robert Mapplethorpe's Piss Christ is actually a form of art. Right? Everything is art in the eye of the beholder.
Wait! He's literally reaming against the concept of postmodernist art. The idea that art is literally in the eye of the beholder, or art is like sort of a subjective thing. That's literally the concept that he's arguing against. He's reaming about postmodernism. Listen, if you think that postmodernism is this evil boogeyman that you ought to be afraid of, then like, you're probably gonna have to purge about 95 to even more % of the media that you consume, because I guarantee the vast majority of it qualifies as postmodernist, okay? Just because media feels like it sucks now doesn't mean that there is some political bent that has made it bad. I know it's very tempting to believe that because you've got millionaires on the internet that are paid by billionaires telling you that's the case, but for God's sakes, use your brain. Use your brain!
Holder. And that's what's really going on here. And if you notice it, then they're like, how dare you notice this? Well, if
how
you
dare
hadn't
you
made a deal
notice
out of it,
this?
I wouldn't have noticed it. If you didn't...
So, let me go ahead and point out one of the most overt red flags in any conservative, like, propaganda, like, dog whistle ever, is when they say they're mad at you for insert thing that is very unspecific and objectively good. They'll get mad at you for saying it how it is. They'll get mad at you for noticing this fact. they'll get mad at you for stating this reality. They'll get mad at you if you talk about this fact. They like to sort of like add this element of not only academic, strength to everything they have to say, make themselves seem smarter, but they also have to add this level of like what was it called again? What was it called? Dark academia? What was the term? There was this term that like blew up with like the Jordan Peterson fandom. It was like, or fandom, like dark academics or dark. It was some cringe shit like that. That Dark Brandon is like playing on, literally, I believe. Does anyone remember that? Intellectual dark web. Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, the intellectual dark web, the IDW thing. Yeah, like these people have this really strong desire to make themselves feel like they're this oppressed minority that's being trapped from speaking the truth because they need to feel like they're like a bunch of fucking heroes fighting against the LGBT, BLM, BLT brigade, I guess. But they're fucking LARPers, just like any tanky.
Didn't think it was historic. If you didn't think it was important, you wouldn't have done it. It also demonstrates, by the way, just how much the sort of institutions of American government have been taken over by members of the woke left. When you have members of the Library of Congress who are reaching out to Lizzo to have her twerk with a flute, that says something. Like, the Library of Congress is supposed to be a place where you preserve historic instruments and respect them, not a place.
Did it get broken? I asked this earlier. Did it get broken or damaged? Because if it got broken or damaged, I will absolutely call out Lizzo and be like, damn, that was pretty irresponsible. You started dancing on stream or on stage with the crystal flute and you dropped it and it broke or something. Like, obviously I'd like be like, oh wow, that was pretty irresponsible. That's cringe. But like, as far as I'm aware, it's fine. So as far as I can tell, you seem to believe that she's added some sort of curse or a debuff to the flute by engaging in her, like, bodacious black butt dancing in its presence. I guarantee that in private, those words would come out of Ben's mouth with not a hint of irony to be seen.
Place where you give it to people who are then going to twerk with those instruments on stage to the cheers of a gaggle of morons. Alrighty, guys, the rest of my show is continuing now. You're not going to want to miss.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Ben Shapiro with the desire to jump on the bandwagon. I have to admit, guys, I am I'm torn when it comes to Ben. I feel like Ben sometimes breaks the mold in ways that are so risky, it doesn't feel like he could possibly be just in it for the money. But then again, he also does shit like that that's like, I know he's smart enough to know that's bullshit. He has to be lying right now. So it's hard to tell whether or not he's a grifter or if he's being genuine sometimes. Like, is he genuinely this brainwashed into this stuff and he believes it? Or is he through and through a lying grifter who's just trying to maximize his profits? Or is he the more likely option of just somebody who is... He does believe most of the things he's saying, but he's over-exaggerating, hamming it all up, and you know, milking everything to make as much money as possible, which I think is probably the most common case. Probably what's most likely. This was a common Lizzo W. I don't even really know much about Lizzo outside of this. Like, still. Like, what does she generally do? Is she a comedian? Because the context I heard her discussed in was about whether or not she was funny. Does she do, like, sort of, like, comedy and music like Bo Burnham, in a way? I have literally no clue what kind of music she makes. I have no idea. I literally had no idea who she was until 4 weeks ago. She is mainly a pop star. I see. Yeah, I see. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't really listen to much new music. I mean, I do. I'm not like one of those people that's like, ew, new music. I'm just not super duper on top of new music releases. But when I hear a song that I like, regardless of when it came out, I'm like, all right, well, yeah, add that to the playlist. I just don't really listen to new music releases all that much. I usually discover songs and stuff through media. It's one of my favorite ways to discover a new song, is hearing it used very tastefully and well in like a movie or a TV show. and it just fits really well, and you're just like, damn, this goes hard. I need to look this up. That's always like the best. I can't believe she put the flute up her backside and farted into it. Can you, dude, the way they're talking about it, it almost feels like that's what she did, you know? If I didn't know any better, I'd think that's what she did with the way they speak about it. They really are so fucking mad about it. It's hard for me to fully explain why I think so many viewers of Ben Shapiro, even the ones that aren't like full on like white supremacists, would be so prone to take issue with this. But I don't know if it's all entirely overt, like, I don't like that there's a black person playing the flute. I think it's a reduction of, I think it's like a massive reduction of what Ben actually believes and what like these people actually believe. I think they see Lizzo as like a representation of woke, feminist, virtue signaling, what's the term for it? Affirmative action for celebrities. That's what I've heard overwhelmingly about Lizzo when I do hear about her, is like, oh, she's not talented. Oh, the left just likes her because if you don't, then you're racist or you're whatever, like, right? So it seems like there's this idea that she is a representation of this imaginary, ever-looming pressure to not be racist that they feel society is bombarding them with. And so to see her in such a position of, like, honor there, being in, like, the Capitol and getting to, like, play an instrument they have such a seemingly hard-on over, from what I can tell, like, that's what the problem is for them. Not necessarily the race alone, but who it is that is using the instrument and that they represent a left-wing anti-racist movement in these conservatives' minds. So it is racist, but not as simple and easy to explain as their mad black woman played the flute. I think it's just way too reductionist. You have to, like, understand that these people can't even admit to themselves in many cases that they're racist. They've lied to everybody else, including the internet, so much that they've probably convinced themselves to a degree that they're not racist. Like, to accept and tell yourself and, like, acknowledge that you're just a fucking racist and you hate anyone who's not, or you hate people for their skin color, things they can't change or whatever. Like, that's more or less admitting to yourself that you're kind of fucking evil. Like if you acknowledge it and just come to terms with it and you're like, yeah, no, that's me. I'm a fucking racist. Yeah. Like, if that's you, then, I mean, that's a little bit fucking evil. So nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to acknowledge, like, to continue being racist and acknowledge what they're doing is racist. So obviously they're going to deny it. And there's tons of other reasons why they would as well. But they'll lie to themselves about what their motivations are. They will. Clipped? Would I say that's clippable? Good news is you can change. It's true. It's true. If you're watching and you're a conservative, or you're like a, you know, little chuddy boy and you want to get out of the dog shit conservative whatever the fuck hole, whatever we're calling it now, I don't know. Listen, you don't have to watch my content. You don't need to watch left-wing content. All I ask is, if you watch, say, your next Ben Shapiro video, and he says this and this happened, I recommend you do your own research. Fact-check his statements, the ones he makes definitively. Fact-check them. Fact-check them broadly. And see what the overwhelming majority of well-substantiated and well-respected sources, particularly those that are scientific journals and scientific and medical institutions, if we're talking about something to do with, like, trans issues, see what they say about these issues, and see if you can reconcile Ben's desire to monetize this rhetoric, his rhetoric being wrong, him saying his rhetoric is on the sides of fact and logic, while then later basically admitting that it's not. You tell me what you think is more likely. There we go. Anyway, if you like this video, please consider leaving a like. I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel out a lot more than you even realize, and obviously every single like really just pushes the channel into more people's recommended, more people's little, like, feed there for them to click on new videos, and it just means more people seeing my content. So do it. hit that like button. And of course, if you want to see more from me on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe and ring the bell icon so that you are told when I go live or upload a new video. Otherwise, YouTube will simply not tell you. And of course, if you want to see more from me and support my content financially directly, you can do so over on my website, xanderhal.com/live, in the form of a donation, a sub, or even a gifted sub. You can also support me over on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, and even Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.